Okay, so now that we have our very basic web page, which we've added some content to, but it's really plain, doesn't have any images, doesn't have any color, it's just a bunch of text. This is where CSS, or cascading style sheets, comes in. And the way that we add styles is that we're first going to create a separate CSS file. So here we are back in our code view in Aptana Studio, and we're going to go to File and say New from Template. And in this case, we're going to ask for a CSS template. So we see again, as before, right, we get untitled CSS. So we're going to go to save this, go File, Save As, and I'm going to save it to the project. I don't know why this error keeps coming up, but we're just going to ignore it. And so I'm going to put it in Basic Web App, and I'm going to say Basic Web App Styles.css. Again, for whatever reason, we have to tell it what the file extension should be. File extensions are important. They tell your browser how to interpret the files, and so that's not a step you can skip over. So I'm going to hit OK, and you can see right away that I have this this thing that says body, and it's got these curly braces. So if you familiarized yourself a little bit with how CSS is structured, what we know is that when it says body, and you see there's nothing in front of this body tag, it just says body, and then it has curly braces. And what that means is that it's going to apply any of the styles, right, any of the colors, fonts, width, height, all of that stuff, that we put inside these curly braces to the body tag, right? What's the body tag? It's this guy. Now, sometimes we do this, sometimes we don't actually put anything in the body tag. But when you see it like that, when you see something like that in a CSS file, it's going to apply to a tag. Most web browsers will only honor tags that are actually part of the HTML spec. Won't go too far into that right now, but what we're more concerned with at this point, we can just leave that blank. What we're more concerned with at this point is styling our individual divs. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to style each of our divs differently. So this sort of goes to why we created these individualized IDs, because it gives us a way to grab those divs via CSS. So what I'm going to do here is, when I want to grab something by its div name, I indicate that with a pound sign. Now, because we have these two files in a project folder together in Aptana Studio is going to help us out, and it's going to say, okay, you started with a pound, so I know that you want to grab a div and apply to a style to it. And it's actually, as you can see, giving me a drop-down of all of the divs currently on my page. So I'm just going to click this and then open my curly braces. Again, you can see that it's giving me a closed brace automatically, which is very nice of it. Thank you, Aptana. I strongly recommend that you take advantage of this feature of Aptana Studio, or if for some reason things don't pop up, that you actually copy and paste. You're going to hear that from me a lot. Copy and paste, copy and paste. Why? Because all of these things are case sensitive. The names of the divs must match exactly between the CSS file and the HTML file. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. And many a new programmer has spent tons and tons of time trying to figure out why the thing isn't working, and it's because the names are not the same. So word of advice, take advantage of what your editor has available. So what are the basic things that we can dictate about one of these div boxes? Well, a really obvious thing is the width. And when we specify width, we have two options. Width and height, we have two options. We can either do it as a percentage or as a certain number of pixels. So for sake of ease, in this case, we're going to do it by number of pixels. So I'm just going to make this one 300 pixels, and that's our format. We give the property name, which we know is a valid property name because of the way it highlights, and a colon. And then if it's a pixel amount, we always have to say the number, and then px right next to it, and then we end with a semicolon. So I'm going to say width, I'm going to say height is also 300 pixels. Whoops, and that space wouldn't be a problem, but I'm going to take it out anyway. It's good to be consistent about how you write code in general, so find a way that works for you, but this is what I prefer to do with formatting. And now something that we're going to really be able to see. So we're going to put a border on this. And there are sort of three elements to border. to the border property in CSS. One is the width, which I'm going to put as 1 pixel. One is the so-called style, which I'm going to make solid, right? So it's just going to be a solid line. And then, of course, there's the color, and I'm just going to make this pound 000,000 is black. If you're not familiar with hexadecimal numbers, that's how you describe numbers on the web. I suggest you Google that. Again, we might have some explanatory stuff eventually, but if you're not familiar with it, give it a look-see. And if you're wondering what kind of styling properties are available to you via CSS, the answer is lots and lots and lots. So we're going to address some of the basic ones here, but you should always feel free to use Google or another search engine, or go to the W3C, which is the World Wide Web Consortium website that describes all of the different properties that are available. But I think probably pretty shortly we're going to put together a cheat sheet of the most useful CSS properties. And just to get really, I'm not going to say fancy, but because it's going to probably be pretty hideous, but to get as obvious about it as possible, I'm now going to put in background color. And I'm going to choose, that pound symbol, by the way, is a way that we designate hexadecimal numbers. It's not the same as the div name. They mean different things because it's slightly different context. A little confusing perhaps, but hopefully not too bad. So I'm going to do one of my favorite really obvious colors, which is a big bright red. And this is going to be unattractive, but hopefully it will let us know that we've done something at all. So now I'm going to reload. Oh no, nothing happened. Uh-oh. Why? Well, I did a very good job of creating my CSS file, and I did a very good job of applying styles to my page div. The problem is that I didn't actually, yes, these two files are in the same folder, but I didn't actually hook them together with code. So when we flip back to our HTML file, remember that our HTML file is it's the mixing bucket or the mixing bowl where we bring all of the different types of code together and they kind of mix together and create the look and feel and interactivity of our web app. So we have a special part of the HTML file which is called the head tag. And inside the head tag is where we tell the page, listen, these are all the files I want you to go out and get and bring and mix together to make this page render properly. And so in order for our styles to be applied, we need to add a tag in here, a specific tag that says, listen, over here is a CSS file that I want you to look at to know how to style this web page. Now, here's the thing. Personally, I always forget what this code is supposed to look like. Exactly what that tag is, and so I solve it in a very sophisticated way, which is that I type in Google, and then I will put in something like CSS head tag, right? And first link, gonna give it a shot. It's the W3C schools, right? World Wide Web Consortium schools site, which is a great reference. And we are using an external style sheet. And here we have a great demo. So I'm going to copy this, right? That was my double copy little keystroke there. And I'm going to put it in there. And so this kind of has all of the metadata about what needs to be included. But basically it's saying, okay, it's a link tag. I kind of forget that. And it says rel equals style sheet. I don't even really know what rel stands for, but style sheet makes sense to me. I know it's a CSS file. Type text/CSS makes sense. That's my extension. href, which stands for hyperreference, I believe. mystyle.css. Now, I've put this in here. I'll let you decide whether you think this is going to do anything useful for my web page. The answer, as we see, is it doesn't. Why? Because in fact, this is not the name of my CSS file. My CSS file is called Basic Web App Styles. So if I start to edit this, what do you know? Aptana comes to the rescue again. And it's going to fill in the correct file name for me because it's clever like that. So now I'm going to save those changes and come back to my web page again and see, ta-da! So again, this is a very, very basic way of styling. Obviously, it's pretty ugly. I'm afraid that many of these tutorial files will be kind of ugly, but it gives you a basic sense for how you can start styling things. So you should feel free to sort of go out on your own and look for interesting CSS styles that let you do things like change the font and the font size and all that good stuff. And in the next section, we're going to start adding a little bit of interactivity to our page with JavaScript. See you soon.